Do you feel like the events that you hold here help you connect with the MSU campus?
Yeah, I think they do. That's one of the reasons that we do try to hold different kinds of special events here is because we want more of the MSU community to know that we exist and that we offer things other than just stars and constellations and star talks and things. I believe that early on that was kind of the attitude. I know there were some people in the planetarium community that, you know, historically were, oh, planetariums are just for stars, and everybody else stay out. But we don't want people to get that attitude from us, and so we want to try to be as inclusive as we can and let people all around campus know that we can do other things. We can do like the game night, or we did recently we did a program about architecture. One of the architecture faculty came in and did a talk in there showing some Frank Lloyd Wright houses that are in the area that were really fascinating. So we try to branch out and do a lot of things. We just the other day we're working on some programming for I must be a biochem faculty member that had some animations of proteins and DNA and how it was binding and twisting around and stuff. So yeah, so we try to do as much of that as we can, and I think it's being heard across the rest of the campus that we can do that kind of stuff.
Does it help you connect with the Greater Lansing community as well?
Probably. Probably. I know, at least with our game night that we had, I was really kind of somewhat surprised and pleased that, probably half the people that participated in that were just people from the community, some families that came out. We had a smaller crowd overall than I was hoping for, but I thought it was going to be more of a lot more college students that would have come out, but we had some college students and we had just people from the community. So I guess the word is kind of getting out there that we exist for a lot of other things.
And how have the new events helped you? Let me start that question over. I'm sorry. How have holding these events helped change the view of the planetarium since when you first started here?
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to say. Wait, yeah. Say the question again, because
Sure.
I'm not quite sure if I totally understand what you're asking.
Okay, I'll rephrase it then.
All right.
So you've started holding more events that have things to do with stuff other than astronomy and stars.
Yes.
How has that changed during this time here? Like, have you been holding more of those, or?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have been, I would say, doing more events, especially since we've upgraded to the Digistar 5, which is a much easier system to program on and allows it for a wider array of topics and things. So it's easier to do that on the newer system than it was with our older Digistar 2 system. And so for that reason, we're doing more things. And I know that now that we have a little bit more staff here than we did before, we have more people to be able to do some of the things that maybe we wanted to do before but just didn't really have the ability to do. And so I would say we are doing more things than we used to do. Whether, I mean, I'm sure that, back when I first started here, kind of the mindset I think at that time was that we just can't do these things because it's too impractical. And so there were probably things that just kind of got dismissed right away without really thinking through, like, well, yeah, we could probably do that, because I'm pretty sure that before Shane and I got here, Dave went for probably 10 years as just a one-man operation, and then, yeah, you really couldn't do very much other than just the basic stuff. And so, I think it took a while for the kind of mindset to change a little bit, that yes, we do have a few extra people and some extra time and can do stuff.
How many more people have been added since you started here?
Well, let's see, I guess, counting me and Shane, that's kind of what I'm thinking of, because originally it was Dave and Bob Victor. Well, I shouldn't say originally, because I understand that back in the 60s and 70s, it was a very large staff here. There's a lot of offices down in the basement, and there were artists here, and there were people that worked in the machine shop that would create special effects, and there were writers and a lot of students. There was even a program, a master's program, that was offered in planetarium production and operation that used to be run from here. There's a lot of older planetarium colleagues that I meet at conferences that will say, "Oh, I went to the Abrams and got my master's degree in there." But that all got cut at some point in the probably late 70s or 80s, early 80s maybe. There was some budget cutbacks, and those things kind of got eliminated. And then at some point, it was just down to Dave Batch and Bob Victor doing everything. I guess they had a secretary then, so there were really 3 people on staff, and probably a few students, but I'm not sure how many that were filling in on weekends now and again. But they had to eliminate a lot of things back then, and that must have gone on for quite some time. And then Bob retired a couple of years before Shane and I started, and so there was at least a couple of years that Dave and the secretary at the time were the only ones here, and then Shane was hired, and then about 6 months later I was hired, and so then we had 3 people. Then I know that but then we had Ruth was the secretary when I came, and then after a couple of years she moved to a different department, and they didn't want to replace her with a full-time person, and we just had Mary, who's wonderful, but she was just kind of part-time and would just fill in now and again. So so it was that way for a number of years, and then more recently Shannon became the new director after Dave retired, and Bonnie became the full-time secretary, and then for a long time we only had usually 2 or 3 students. Maybe we'd have one show presenter student that would do some weekend shows, and then we may have 1 or 2 cashiers. But now I think we have 5 or 6 or more students that are doing shows and cashiering, and then when they're around, they're able to kind of help out and volunteer and do other things. So as far as student help, we have a lot more than we used to.
Could you see the planetarium returning to what it was like in the 60s and 70s, with all of the offices in the basement being filled?
Yeah, probably not. Part of that change, wasn't just, budgetary. A lot of it was changes in technology, because, in those days you needed a lot of people with a lot of different skills to do it, and probably computers made a big difference, because now, you know, you just get your computer and you can create some artwork right there on the computer, and you can type things up in a word processor. I suppose, at least I mean, I wasn't there in the 60s, but I imagine that, you know, then people wouldn't, maybe they'd have a typewriter, but often they would probably just, you know, maybe handwrite something and then have a secretary type it up, and then you had other people around and, you know, doing a lot of other little small jobs. It's kind of hard to imagine what life must have been like when, before you had photocopiers and you know, you had to do stuff with carbon paper, and but people survived and they made planetarium shows back then. You know, we have there's the remains of a dark room down there, so we, you know, used to do our own developing of the photographic film, stuff like that. So, you know, all of that kind of stuff is gone and it won't come back. And so I don't imagine that we'll have the size of a staff that we used to have. And that same thing has happened in planetariums all around. I think that, you know, there were many planetariums back in the 60s that had big staffs that have been shrunk down to 2 or 3 people.
Talk me through the exhibit hall. What kinds of things are there?
The exhibits, well, there's the, you know, there's, I guess what I would refer to as the lobby, and then there's the blacklight gallery. And the lobby has the globe, which is the original globe from when the building was built. Right now, the newest addition are some touch screens that are on the wall out there. Shannon had some experience with touch screens at a place that she was at before, the Field Museum in Chicago, and so she was able to get some funding to put those up there. Kids like to interact with things these days, so they're very popular. We have a telescope